How much sex is enough when it comes to your happiness? A Canadian study has set out to find out. I'm Jennifer Sanasi, you're watching News 24 Live. I'm joined in studio by sex and relationship columnist Dorothy Black, and she's going to tell you how much sex is enough. Hello.
Hi. Well, I'll tell you what, they say once a week is enough.
Do you believe that?
It depends on what is sex. So the study run by a woman called Amy Muse, long-term study, 1989, this particular part of it, 1989 to 2012,
That's a really long time.
thousands of couples, came to say that although more sex will make you happy, it plateaus at once a week. So as long as you're getting sex once a week, it's all good. However, there was a caveat, and the caveat was as long as you're keeping your intimacy alive and your connection alive, across the board. And so also, what is sex? Are we having penetrative sex once a week? Is that the definition of sex? In between, there's a lot of foreplay. There's hugging, there's kissing, there's touching, there's bonding, there's, doing the talking stuff, the communication stuff. So I think to say sex once a week is kind of, is minimizing actually what we're talking about here, as opposed to just there's penetrative sex once a week and that's all there is.
Now, did the study only look at penetrative sex, or did we take into consideration all of those other scenarios that you just mentioned?
Well, I think loads of studies, when they talk about sex, I assume they're meaning penetrative sex. There's never any real conversation about what it might include. However, this research lead, the Amy Muse, said that each of those couples were long-term, they were established couples, and that the caveat was that if it's going to work, there needs to be lots of communication and connection in between. So no, none of the studies I ever read about sex have ever really defined what they mean by sex. But the mainstream sees sex as penetrative sex, so I'm assuming that's what it is.
And how did they determine happiness?
Right. Well, I don't know. That wasn't described. I think it has to do with contentment, how happy you feel with your partner, how confident and how at well-being you feel with your home life. I think the other thing is that a lot of couples who find themselves under pressure with their jobs and their families and their exercise regimes and their diets feel very compelled to have lots of sex. And that stresses them out eventually. And so they feel stressed out having enough sex, having more sex, to be more functional humans and better relationship havers, stresses it out and puts pressure on the relationship and stops being pleasurable. And so I think the idea was that if you take the pressure off and you just have a good time, you keep your connection, as long as you're making a sexual connection once a week, everything's hunky-dory.
So there's no such thing as too much sex?
Well, I don't think there's such. I think there can be too much sex if you're under pressure to have too much sex. I think if you can take the pressure off and you go with what feels comfortable for you, whatever that sexual connection is, maybe you're doing a little bit of penetration, maybe you're trying a little bit of oral, a little bit of manual, just maybe a little massage, a little bit of getting down, a little mutual bathing, very nice. As long as you're keeping those open, whatever it is from day to day, however much sex is enough for you is enough.
Now, what if you feel like you're not having enough sex and you don't know how to bridge that topic?
Oh, if you feel like you're not having, I think you need to first come up with a game plan as to what you think would be enough sex and what that kind of sex would look like to you, and then try and figure out how that would happen in your schedule. So instead of just going up to your partner and being like, I don't think we're having enough sex, we need to have more sex, I think you need to come with a little bit more of an idea of what that means, and then to not go into it with an accusatory tone, like for somehow, they're withholding sex from you, unless they are, in which case that's a bad thing. But if they're not, and it's just a mutual agreement as to how many times you need to have sex, have an idea about what you want, what that would look like, and then sit down and say, I think we need to get a little bit more jiggy, a little bit more often. And then schedule it. If you can't just find time during the day, then you need to make time during the week.
I've heard some people talk about scheduling as unromantic. Have you heard that before?
I knew you were going to ask this question. Yes. And the thing is, maybe it's unromantic, but if you need to plan for a quickie, if you need to plan for a longer term, like a more time sort of love-making session, if